Welcome to みんなのキリスト教広場ラジオ。大学生クリスチャンサークルStudent Impactのスタッフクリスチャンになって6年のペーペーのまゆと、今日はドイル先生です。このラジオはキリスト教に魅了されてきた私たちがキリスト教の奥深さを全然触れてこなかったっていう人でも分かるように話していこうという番組です。はい、このラジオでは毎回ゲストをお迎えしているんですけど、今回はですね、津田塾大学と東京外国語大学で先生をされているドイル先生をお迎えしています。はい、そう、ドイル先生 You're teaching at 津田塾 University and Tokyo University of Foreign Studies.
Yes.
Right? 簡単にね自己紹介をしてほしいなと思うんですけど、はい、私の紹介多分大丈夫かな、どうせ餃子好きですとかしか言わないのではい、じゃあドイル先生 Can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
My name is Doyle, and I'm from the United States. I grew up in Texas, but these days I live in Oregon. I teach at Bushnell University, where I am professor of interpersonal communication.
So Bushnell University is in Oregon.
It's in Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene, Oregon.
Right across the street from the University of Oregon.
OK はい、そうドイル先生はですね、ブッシュネル大学というアメリカのそのユージンオレゴンという、ところにある大学で普段はこう研究をされてるんですけど、この1年間だけ日本に来てこの2つの大学で教えてくださってるんですよね。で今回のシリーズはドイル先生をお迎えして、そのドイル先生の専門が So your major is communication, culture, and Christianity, right?
Well, I majored in communication studies, got my master's in it, got my doctorate in argumentation to be a debate coach. I actually put my Christianity a low priority for almost 20 years. I didn't return to trying to grow in my faith until I was 32 and long out of college. So I've been teaching communication for 30 years, but I have been trying to grow again as a Christian for about 20 years.
なるほど。そう、なんかコミュニケーションの分野でドクターを取ってるんですけど、32歳ぐらいからそのキリスト教っていうところをこう含めてコミュニケーションと、あとその自分の信仰としてのキリスト教っていうのをこう伝えてきているという、あとディベートのこうコーチとしてが、専門というかプロフェッショナルだと思うんですけど、今回はですね、そのコミュニケーションとかこうディベートとかキリスト教について詳しいドイル先生と4つのエピソードに分けてお話ししていきたいと思っていて、で実は私最近彼の授業ドイル先生の授業を取っていた学生に会ったんですけど、すっごい授業面白いですよって、なんか全部ノート取ってます、メモしてますっていうことを聞いて、私もめっちゃ今日楽しみと思って来たんですけど、特に、ドイル先生はアメリカ出身ですし、私は日本出身なのでアメリカと日本に関して、西洋とあと東洋の違いとかいろいろなことを文化に関しても取り上げていきたいと思っているんですが、ちょっと私がバイリンガルでやっていこうと思っています。頑張ります。はい。So I recently met a student who is taking your class and she said like your class is so interesting and like she takes like all the things you said during the class, so I'm so like excited to like talk to you today. Yeah, we're gonna try in bilingual, so 頑張りましょうはい、じゃあ今回のそのエピソード1ですけど、今回のトピックはですね、コミュニケーションです。はい、英語でもコミュニケーションですね通訳が簡単でよかったです。はい、The topic for episode 1 is communication, America versus Japan. So in this episode, we will talk about these two beautiful cultures that we're very familiar, but also very different. Yeah, so I want to start with the question of how is Western culture affected by Christianity? So it's a big question, but like you grew up in America, you also know like you studied about like other cultures too, and these cultures were very influenced by Christianity or Christian people when you look at the history. So I want to ask you by the question of how is Western culture is affected by Christianity. So 最初の質問はですね、西洋とか、アメリカとかそのヨーロッパの文化っていうのがキリスト教とかクリスチャンの人になんかどういう影響を受けてきたかっていう、影響を受けているかっていうことをちょっと聞きたい。ちょっと大きい質問なんですけど、大きいところからちょっと始めたいと思っていて、はい、どうでしょう？
There are three ways that it's easy, I think, to see the Christian influence on the difference between Japanese culture and American culture. And all three of them are things originally coined and measured by a social psychologist named Kurt Hofstede from the Netherlands. So Japan is very collective. The United States and the West generally more individualist. So in Japan, you sacrificing or compromising or fitting in so the group can succeed is good and how things are supposed to work. In the United States, actually the individual doing what they want and using the group to get what they want. That's how things are supposed to work. The second one is power distance. Wherever there are human beings, some are more powerful and some are less powerful. But in high power distance cultures like Japan, it's okay for the powerful people to show that they're powerful, and the less powerful people are expected to obey and behave respectfully. In low power distance cultures, the more powerful people are supposed to hide the fact. They're supposed to pretend that everyone's really equal. Then finally, there's uncertainty avoidance. Japan is a high uncertainty avoidance culture, which means there's a correct way to do everything, and it's important to do things the correct way. The United States is moderately low uncertainty avoidance, which means it's okay to do something that you think might be wrong, but you experiment just to see if it works. That's done commonly. It's done in conversation. It's done in behavior. Now, to take those three and explain the Christian influence, collective and individual, Kurt Hofstede said, was the biggest and most important difference between cultures. And there's a researcher named Joseph Henrich. He's a biology professor at Harvard and an atheist. And he published a book in 2019 saying the collectivist and individualist difference between cultures was caused by Christianity. Because the Catholic Church in the 5th century, it started enforcing the rule that you could not marry your cousins and you could not have more than one wife. And what that did is it broke up extended clans in the West. And it meant that you dealt with other people not as part of your extended family, but in the marketplace. And it changed what proper behavior was. So then, just very quickly, power distance, the teaching out of Christianity, the upside down kingdom, what Jesus told Pilate, you have no power that was not given to you from beyond, and my kingdom is not of this world. What Christians learn from the Bible is if you try to build up your own power and clutch all the power to yourself, whether that's money, whether that's popularity, you will do unethical, wrong things to try to hold on to it, and it will be taken from you. But if you humble yourself and serve people who are in need, God, who has the real power, will bless you, and God will guard your power. And then finally, as far as uncertainty avoidance is about doing the proper things that you learned from the elders and from past generations. And Jesus came teaching that the commands, the leadership of the elders in past generations had taken people far from what God wanted, and the traditions had become burdens. So, that was a long answer. But individualist collectivist is influenced by Christian ideas about who you can marry. Power distance is influenced by Christian teachings about where does power really lie. And uncertainty avoidance is influenced by, do we have to follow rules or do we have freedom to try to do things that are aligned with God's heart and God's work in the world?
ちょっと日本語で話しますね。So I will wrap up in Japanese just very quickly、そうですね。なんかこう西洋と、東洋の文化の違い今話してくれて、で集団的か、個人主義的かっていうところがあって、であとは、so the second thing was what was it? High power、日本語だとなんて言うんだろう、なんか日本語だとわからないんですけど High power distance
そうです、はい、
ローパワーディスタンス、はい、この2つがハイパワーディスタンスとローパワーディスタンスっていうのがあって、この2つはその権威を持っている人、力を持っている人に対して、日本とか東洋の文化の中では結構その敬意を払ってちょっとこうなんかリスペクトするみたいな部分があると思うんですけど、西洋では結構その、平等みたいなこう権威があっても平等っていうのが、あると。で最後に言っていたのは What was the last thing? The term?
Uncertainty avoidance.
Uncertainty avoidance、と、and what is the opposite for uncertainty avoidance?
You can be high uncertainty avoidance or low uncertainty avoidance.
Okay, はい、uncertainty avoidance 日本語が全然わからないけど、結局その概念は何かというと、こう一つのなんか、正しい一つというか、正しいやり方があって、それをこうフォローする、それに従うか、それともなんかこうオリジナルなこういろいろなアイデアがあって別にどれをしてもいいよみたいな、なんかそのこうバーサスみたいなのがこう3つねあることを紹介してくれたんですけど、それがキリスト教の、結婚の概念と、キリスト教のなんだっけFor the second thing, the high power, low power, what is the Christian teaching? Was it Christian teaching? Sorry, I'm wrapping up.
The upside down kingdom?
そうだから神様、聖書の中ではそのこう、先のものが後になり後のものが先になるっていう概念があるんですけど、そういう風にこう誰でもがこうイコールだよね、むしろなんかこう謙遜になってこう低い場所に行くことがむしろこう神様にこう神様の祝福を受ける道ですよっていうことが、そういう教えがベースになっていて、で最後の、その uncertainty avoidance、それが高いか低いかっていうことなんですけど、それは what was the reason? Sorry, what was the reason for the third one? The third concept of uncertainty avoidance.
High uncertainty avoidance means following tradition.
そうですね。Thank you. And that helps. その聖書の中でこうイエス様がこう伝統的な価値観を持っている人たちをこう、それだけじゃないでしょっていうふうなことを言うシーンがあるんですけど、そうですね。そういうところから来ていると。はい。Thank you for sharing, for answering to the very big question.もう少しちょっとじゃあなんていうんですか、こう親近感のあるところの話をしていきたいなと思うんですけど、So you explained in these like 3 aspects of like Western culture, how like Western culture and Asian culture are like generally different. What about like can you explain more about like these 3 aspects, maybe like behavioral level or like communication, like verbal, non-verbal, or anything in communication?
Sure. So the way that shows up as specific ways of communicating, there are 2 of them, and maybe I can describe one and you can sum it up and then I do the other. Right? Okay. So the first one, how much we say, and the second one is how we perceive other people. So the first one, how much we say, Westerners are known for being more direct, and Japanese people for being a lot more indirect. The United States is classified as a speaker-responsible culture, so the speaker is supposed to say everything, come right out and say it. Japan is classified as listener-responsible, so if there's a misunderstanding, the listener didn't do a good job. And then the one last thing, the United States is classified as a moderately affective culture, which means we show our emotions. Not very high, like, say, Italy or Spain or most of South America, but moderately high. And Japan is a very neutral culture, which is the other end of the spectrum from affective. So in Japan, it's safe to show no emotion, and if you do show emotion, it should be the proper emotion, not the emotion you actually feel. So that's the first way.
I see. どれぐらいその自分話すかシェアするかっていうことがまず一つの側面なんですけど、それはアメリカと日本で特によく違うと言われているのが、その直接的にことを言うか、それとも婉曲的にちょっと遠回しに言うかっていうところがあって、アメリカではその話す人にコミュニケーションをちゃんとする責任があるんだけど、日本ではその聞く人がそのコミュニケーションをちゃんと受け取る責任があるから、そういうふうにそれによってどんな言い方をするか、どういうことを伝えるかっていうのが違くて、あとはその感情をどれぐらい見せるかっていうのも違う。アメリカはそこまでその他の国と比べるとすっごいその、数値が高いわけじゃないんだけど、でもアメリカは比較的他の国と比べてもその感情を表現する文化がある。でも日本はなんか結構ニュートラルな感じ、なんか中立的で、あんまり感情を見せないことが普通で、もし見せるとしたらなんかすごいその状況に適切な感情を見せるっていうことが求められるっていうことですね。はい。Yeah, it explains a lot about the importance in Japan of reading the air.
Right.
Maybe you have heard of this concept. 空気読む。There's a word, KY. So it stands for 空気読めない。
Right.
So you can't read the air.
Read the air.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
that explains a lot about it. Yeah. And the second.
The second one is about how we perceive other people. And that begins with self-concept is very different in Japan from how it is in the West. With Americans, in research settings, I could put down a piece of paper in front of you that just said, "Who are you?" And every 60 seconds put another piece of paper down that said, "Who are you?" Americans, in writing on that piece of paper, they would write about their own emotions, their own personality, their own talents. Japanese people, in research settings, they'll write about how they fit into their family, how they fit into their friend group, what they do at their place of employment. It's very often about who am I to other people? Who am I in the group? Again, collective, not individualist. Along with that, in situations that are difficult or uncomfortable, like conflict, in the West, it's very common for your concern to be with self-face. How am I going to be thought of? Are they showing me enough respect? How do they think of me? Japanese people more often think about other face. This particular thing I say or this topic I bring up, will it make them uncomfortable? Will it make it awkward for them? And that makes communication very different.
なるほど。じゃあ2つ目の側面はなんか他の人をどういうふうに見ているかってことで、それは自分をどう見ているかっていうことにも関係してくるんですけど、アメリカでのその研究では自分のことを書いてください。なんかあなたはどんな人ですかって言った時に自分がどんな性格を持っているかとか、その自分については結構書くんですけど、日本の場合は自分が家族に対してどういう役割を負っているかとか、友達関係でどういうそうですね、どういうことをしているのかとか、その会社の中で自分がどういう役割なのかみたいなことを書く傾向があるらしくて、で自分がその他の人に対してどんなものなのかっていうふうに自分を見る傾向があるみたいです。なので、他の人を見る時にもなんかアメリカの場合は自分のその、メンツが保たれるみたいな、自分の考えが尊重されるみたいなことを重んじるんですけど、日本は他の人がなんか自分をどう見るかっていうことに注目がいくことがあるらしくて、そういうのはよくなんか衝突があったり喧嘩したりとかした時によくね分かりやすい形で表面化するっていうことですね。はい。Hi. Do you have like any like personal like experiences of like these differences with Japanese people or like American people?
Well, I have, in all my years in the United States, had a lot of conflicts with people where they felt insecure or they felt they weren't being shown enough respect and they wanted to speak up for themselves and talk about what they deserved. And then I've had a few experiences over here in Japan where I would contact Japanese friends or Japanese colleagues and then just kind of not hear back on a subject. And I thought that they were hoping the conversation would go away if I just found it kind of hard to continue, that maybe I would take the hint. And so I think they were more concerned with other face, with stopping me from embarrassing myself. And that's, people in the United States don't do that, or they don't do it often.
Yeah, like in Japanese, there's a saying, like phrase of 水に流す. So you like let it go with water.
Right.
So you just forget about it. And you also say like, 時間が経てばどうにかなる. Like when time goes on, like it will solve this problem by itself. So like we don't really bring up the conflicts or the reasons why like you get like frustrated, but you just like forget it, or like maybe younger people tend to like just drink, like go drinking and they forget, like these kind of things.
The funny thing about that, two funny things. First of all, the proposal that I made for my Fulbright grant that the United States government decided to fund, the Japanese Ministry of Education back in 2014 said one of their highest priorities was Japanese learners of English needed help learning to be assertive when using English.
Assertive.
So in other words, being direct. And where there is a problem, saying, this is the problem and this is what I need. And secondly, when I taught my Christian influences on interpersonal communication, we talked about this and how Jesus taught, when you have a conflict, go to the person and talk to them. So Jesus commanded assertiveness, not avoidance or accommodation.
Yeah, so do you have any advice for like maybe younger Japanese people to like express more? Yeah, like do you have any like practical advice?
Sure.
Yeah. Because like I think one of the reasons why we don't express our emotions or don't really say like real thing is we're afraid. We're afraid of rejections. We're afraid of losing the friends or like being weird in the organization or groups. So yeah, do you have any like practical advice for younger generations?
Well, it's tricky. One of the frameworks I teach back in the United States, communication accommodation theory, you have to fit it to the group that you're working with.
Right.
So when I teach this Christian influences on how Westerners communicate, if Japanese people are working alongside Westerners, they should just come right out and say, this thing that you're doing is making it difficult for me. Here's why. Here's what I would like you to do. And tone is so important. They can say it with a smile, sounding cheerful. Hey, that thing you're doing, that's kind of a problem. Could you stop that? You do it like that, and most Americans would say, oh, thank you for telling me that. I don't know what the reaction would be if they tried to practice that with family and friends who'd grown up in Japan. They might see that that was a break with how things are supposed to be, and they might respond negatively because of that.
Yeah, so you really need to like see and like kind of like research how people react to you. Yeah. そうですね。なんかこうね、日本人がただはいじゃあアメリカ人のようになってください、もう言葉をこうねストレートに言ってくださいっていうのじゃなくても、もちろんそのインターナショナルな人とかと話すときはそのもちろんストレートに言った方がまあね笑顔とかでこう言った方が相手に本当に伝わりやすい、よくコミュニケーション取れると思うんですけど、日本人同士で言われたらこうやっぱりなんかどうしてもちょっとストレートにめっちゃ言われたなってこう思って傷ついてしまうパターンもあるかもしれないから、やっぱり相手がどんな人なのかっていうのをなんか研究というか、なんかよくこう観察して相手に伝わるコミュニケーションをこうするっていうことがまあ大事なんじゃないかなと思いますというふうに言ってくださったんですけど、はい。 そうですね。I really like agree with you. Yeah, so I have a lot of like Japanese friends, and my family is also Japanese, but also I work with international people. So like I think like I don't think about it, but it depends on the situation. It depends on the people who I'm talking to. I think I'm changing the way I talk or the tones of my voice or like the facial expressions. I think I'm changing depending on the situation.
Right.
Yeah. はい。すごくいいアドバイスを聞けました。はい。今日はこのエピソードはコミュニケーションについて話したんですけど、コミュニケーションすごくその関係性の中で影響してきますよね。だから次のエピソードは関係についてもう少し話していきたいと思っています。So this episode was about communication, but communication leads to like relationship is affected by communication. So like next episode we want to look more about the relationship, the result of communication, how it's different, how it's affected by Christianity. そう今日はこれで終わりたいと思います。はい、ではまた次のエピソードでお会いしましょう。またね。